Evelyn had just celebrated her 74th birthday when she decided to book the appointment. It wasn't for a cold or her cholesterol. It was for a conversation she hadn't dared to have since her husband passed away 7 years earlier. She sat in the doctor's office, her hands clasped in her lap, rehearsing the words in her head. The door opened. Dr. Armand, a soft-spoken man in his 50s, smiled warmly and took a seat. "What brings you in today, Evelyn?" he asked. She hesitated, then looked him in the eye. "I want to talk about sex." He nodded, not the least bit surprised. "Then let's talk. You're not the first, and I promise you're far from alone." That conversation began a journey Evelyn never expected, one that unfolded 8 truths about sexual health after 70. Not from books or television, but from the raw and honest moments shared in rooms just like that one. Truth number 1. Sexual desire doesn't vanish with age. Evelyn had assumed her body was supposed to go quiet, that the flickers of want she felt were somehow wrong. But the doctor explained that sexual desire is more a matter of individual health, emotional connection, and hormone levels than simply the number on a birth certificate. Yes, menopause brings changes, but it doesn't erase the capacity for arousal, for intimacy, or for pleasure. In fact, for many women and men, the pressure of reproduction and performance disappears with age, leaving space for deeper, freer experiences. Truth number 2. The body changes, but sex doesn't have to end. Evelyn learned that vaginal dryness, decreased blood flow, and thinning tissues are common after 70. But they're not dead ends. They're just changes that require a new approach. Lubricants, estrogen creams, and more patient foreplay can transform what first feels like a barrier into a new kind of intimacy. For men, erectile dysfunction is more common, but it's not the end of a sexual relationship either. There are medications, devices, and most importantly, conversation. Evelyn's doctor made it clear, sex might look different, but it doesn't need to disappear. Truth number 3. Communication is the foundation of intimacy at any age. When Evelyn began seeing a widower named Charles from her community center, they started talking early about their histories, their expectations, their fears. It was awkward, but also freeing. There was no pretending, no performance. They laughed, fumbled, and tried again. That honesty built a kind of closeness Evelyn hadn't expected to find again. The doctor had said this: "At your age, one of the most powerful aphrodisiacs is openness," and it turned out to be true. Truth number 4. Emotional connection often deepens as physical urgency fades. There's something about intimacy after 70 that isn't just physical. It becomes a language of presence. Touch means more. Time slows. There's no rush to reach a climax. Sometimes it's not even the goal. What matters is connection, warmth, and the comfort of being known. Evelyn realized that sex was no longer about youth or thrill. It was about mutual care, and that care could be even more fulfilling. Truth number 5. Protection still matters. One morning over coffee, Charles mentioned he hadn't used a condom since the early 90s. They both laughed, but Evelyn remembered something the doctor had said. Rates of STIs among older adults were on the rise. Protection wasn't just for the young. Even if pregnancy was off the table, sexual health was still very much on it. They got tested together. It felt strange, but also grown-up, responsible, respectful. Evelyn was surprised to find how empowered she felt by simply taking control of her health. Truth number 6. Medications and health conditions can impact sexual function. Evelyn took blood pressure medication, and Charles had diabetes. Neither had connected those issues to their intimate struggles. Dr. Armand explained how medications, antidepressants, antihypertensives, antihistamines could affect libido, arousal, and even sensation. That knowledge changed everything. With adjustments, their bodies responded differently. And knowing it wasn't just getting old brought relief and hope. They weren't broken. They were just uneducated about the medical pieces of the puzzle. Truth number 7. Loneliness can affect libido more than age itself. Before Charles, Evelyn hadn't touched another person, really touched them, in years. The isolation had settled in her bones, making her forget what it felt like to be wanted. The doctor had asked a simple question during their first talk. "How's your heart?" He didn't mean cholesterol. He meant connection. Social isolation is one of the greatest threats to health in older adults, and it often shows up first in the way we lose interest in the things that once brought joy, like touch and closeness. For Evelyn, it wasn't her body that needed awakening. It was her spirit, and intimacy helped bring it back to life. Truth number 8, it's never too late to reclaim your sensuality. The greatest truth Evelyn discovered was that age doesn't close the door on sensuality. It just opens a different one. She started dancing again. She wore perfume. She bought silk sheets. She let herself flirt, giggle, feel shy. The woman who had once dismissed herself as past that phase of life had rediscovered the joy of her own skin, not to please anyone else, but to feel whole. One afternoon, as she and Charles lay side by side, sun filtering through the curtains, Evelyn smiled to herself. She remembered how nervous she'd been that first day in the doctor's office, how she thought she'd be met with embarrassment or brushed aside. But instead, she had found understanding, encouragement, truth. Sex after 70, she realized, wasn't a shadow of something better left behind. It was just different. Slower, yes, but richer too. It was a chance to explore the body and soul without the pressure of youth, to make peace with what's changed and celebrate what remains. She reached over and squeezed Charles's hand. He opened his eyes, smiled, and kissed her cheek. "You're glowing," he whispered. "Not bad for 74, she said. And she meant every word.